Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is April the 3rd, 2020. Strong hand, conviction, long-term thinking. I'm offended by selling. Okay, we got our guest here. Simon is here, Anders is here, and Haas is here. Hey, before we go on, though, I do want to dedicate this show to a long-time fan of this show, a Bitcoin holder. His name was Tor. You've heard me mention this guy before. He was from the LA area. I mentioned that there was a big fan of our show who had brain cancer, and it was Tor. Unfortunately, I just learned right before the show that he died back in February. So I'm dedicating this show to him, and his thumbnail, there's a picture of him in the thumbnail with me. He actually knew Anders also. He came to Anders' event in Los Angeles. And he was a great guy. He's from Baltimore originally, just like I'm from Baltimore originally. And he had a very strong hand, definitely. And this is a lesson for everyone out there. He did know that he had brain cancer, and he knew, that life is short. And he planned it all out with his family. So you hear these stories about people dying and that the Bitcoin was not passed on. But Tor did pass on the Bitcoin to his family. His family is taken care of. And again, I just learned this right before the show. So the show is dedicated to him, and it is a coincidence that Anders also knew him and is on the show today. So Tor, this is dedicated to you, man, and you will be missed. You were a strong hand, and you are an example of how to properly pass on the Bitcoin to your loved ones. So let's get into the current events here. This is This Week in Bitcoin. Welcome to the show, everyone. We will start with a tweet from Anders, which is, money printing is theft. Money printing is taxation. Don't hold fiat currency. Hold Bitcoin. So, Haas, what do you think about that quote in relation to what is going on out there in this wacky world that we are in?
I agree completely. It is 100% theft. So there's two ways that the government can rob us: inflation and tax, and it's all theft as far as I'm concerned. But I love money printing. Every Bitcoiner should love money printing because when they were flouting the idea of we're gonna be spending 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trillion as a stimulus, I said, fire up those printers and make me rich. So I think every Bitcoiner secretly hopes for more and more money printing. That said, though, it's going to be a huge burden on society in a greater context to have to repay this back later in the future. So this particular case is a tough one because it's money printing for the sake of a public health crisis, but the public health crisis might just be a cover, since it might just be the pin that pops a bubble of unsustainability completely unrelated to public health.
It is quite a time we are living in, and who would have predicted whatever 6 trillion or whatever has been printed. So Anders, you're here in the United States, and it was your quote that I read. We were talking about all sorts of money supply before the show. What's your take?
Yeah, so I believe I read that the money supply in US is $30 trillion, which kind of makes sense when the global money supply, including M1, M2, M3, which is like number one is just actual notes and coins, and then M2 it becomes like what's in your bank, etc. But if you count everything globally, it's 100 trillion. I believe in US, I read it's 30 trillion. So when you create 6.2 more in a matter of a couple of weeks, it essentially will create that itself more than 20% inflation. It doesn't happen immediately, it happens over time, but printing more money doesn't create more value. If it did, we could print $100 million to every single citizen, give it to everybody. Everyone would be rich. We didn't have to work anymore. That's just an example of course you can't do that. It doesn't create more value. A money system, as I like to call it, has a certain value, right? So if you print more units, it's just each unit will be worth less, but it still has the same amount of real value. So this essentially means that you're diluting the value of the current dollars, clearly. So anyone who's holding cash is being robbed, around 20% of the value of that, not immediately, over time. As Haas was saying, the situation is special. It's there's a health crisis, so maybe it's necessary, but nevertheless, it is stealing value. And then you can, always discuss: is it a good cause? Is it not? But you are stealing value from holders of cash here and now.
All right. Is this the first step? You're still a big believer in hyper-Bitcoinization. I guess it's looking like you've got your point is stronger these days, isn't it?
And thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. And it will only get stronger. I'm a strong believer of Gresham's law, where when you have more money in your pocket, you will always spend the one that you consider less quality, less good, first, because you want to hold back. You want to keep the one that you consider has best long-term value. In a situation like this, where you have dollars. I know you believe in that dollars will still be around, fiat currency will still be around to some extent. Maybe you change your mind, I don't know. But I just believe that because more and more people will realize that Bitcoin is a better money, people will be using that dollars first, to the extent that eventually, which I believe will happen after the next halving, nobody wants to hold it anymore, and we go into hyperinflation, and that essentially is the other side of the coin of hyperbitcoinization. And the reason I say, we all agree that Bitcoin is the better money, right?
Yeah.
I want to state a point why there can't be any better money than Bitcoin, because then people don't have to think about, Monero is that good, or Litecoin is it good because it has shorter block time and everything. Really, for a commodity to be money, because it's always been a commodity that's been money, and Bitcoin is just a digital commodity. First of all, it does need to be scarce. Being 100% capped, unlike gold, where we can still find more, being 100% capped at 21 million means it's infinite cap, right? So that's the first thing. Nothing can beat Bitcoin on that. Then you need portability and divisibility, durability, and fungibility, which essentially means privacy. It's infinite portable. You can walk through customs with $100 million in your brain alone, just in your memory. It's infinite portable. It's infinite. It's infinite divisible. It's infinite durable, and also it will have infinite privacy. We already have CoinJoin, but once we get Schnorr and Taproot and Lightning Network and all that working together, it won't be traceable. So, and all those, if on the important properties of money, what money can be compared on, it has infinite max value. You really can't beat it. At the same time, because it's decentralized and digital, it's also permissionless value transfer. You can transfer to WikiLeaks, which you can't do with dollars, for instance. So it's permissionless value transfer. And also it's unconfiscatable. We know that, but I just wanted to highlight that it is infinite value on all of these dream properties you want to have on money. And when you have something that is infinite valuable, and it already has the network effect it has, it won't be able to change. Like the world has to have an apocalypse or something like that for me even to think that there'll be something else than
now,
Bitcoin.
I totally agree with your tweet. I don't see how anyone in their right mind can flock to the fiat at this time. This is the time that people should be waking up. But I mean, the dollar is the best of the bunch, basically.
Sure.
And so I agree. Money printing is theft. Money printing is taxation. And that's, I mean, when this whole panic started and Bitcoin price crashed, I mean, the first thing I did, I bought Bitcoin that day. That whatever it was, Bloody Thursday, whatever it was called. So Simon has been silent here. He's gonna have a lot to say about all this, because you actually you had a tweet thread called Bitcoin, charcoal or diamond. So I mean, you can tie some of that into what Anders said. But your thoughts on the money printing first.
Okay, well, I agree that I mean, you see all around the world that the escape buttons are being pushed, and which is money printing, and we see the Chinese doing it, we see the Europeans doing it, we see everyone doing it. So all over the world, we're tackling the crisis just by printing money. So we're taking care of people. So this is really short-term decision making done to save the bunch, and there are good reasons for doing so. I think in terms of, if you are a government, what do you want to do? I mean, you're saying to people, sit down, sit at home. People lose their jobs, so you'll grab a tool that you would not generally use. But the fact of the matter remains that you'll increase the supply, and there's one supply not increasing at all. And that means that from a relative perspective, it's clear that you're going to get an increase in the Bitcoin price. So I'm completely with you on that. Although if you also look at the history of Bitcoin, you can see that where monetary environments are unstable, there's a likelihood that governments will be forbidding the use of Bitcoin. So the catch would be that if Bitcoin becomes too strong, some governments might say, well, it's now completely prohibited to, I mean, and of course there are other countries you can go to and such, but I see this as sort of a deus ex machina, an outside thing that may also occur. I mean, they're breaking all the kind of rules in terms of money printing and such, so why not also so in the worst nightmare would be that basically there's a huge money printing going on, then you forbid Bitcoin, and then you hurry up with the central bank digital currency, and you push people towards the central bank digital currency, and you push them towards a thing that they don't want. So that's my worst nightmare, and the nice dream, the vision, would be the one where we don't overregulate Bitcoin. We just accept that it's there, and we leave people to choose, and we can see the effect of having a robust system alongside a system that is completely moving off the rails. So these are very, very interesting times indeed. And I should also say to all the viewers and listeners that have family in this crisis, take care, be healthy, stay healthy, and be very cautious. I mean, these are stressing times, and my heart goes out to everyone who has a family or related people that are ill at the moment. So I just want to say that, and then we'll move on to the Bitcoin stuff, because it's scary times.
Yes, and I do want to say that all these guys, if you want to know more about them, they are all linked to below. All their Twitters are linked to below, and various tweets that they're mentioned in. So speaking about, going back to your country, to the Netherlands, and this crisis that is going on, you noticed and that they tried to sneak something in there, didn't they? Tell the world about this, because this is very interesting. Because there is a real illness out there. There's a real virus out there, but governments can use this as a time for overreach. And a lot of people are pointing to a lot of examples, and you have a real, crypto example here.
Yeah, so the situation in the Netherlands is the following. We're still in a discussion on legislation on crypto. Basically, there's a base layer of legislation that was initially proposed by the Ministry of Finance. That was all fine. And then the supervisor, the central bank, said, no, we want an extra layer of supervision on top of that. And that really kills off the industry. So the industry is sort of battling for a year now and saying, well, take off the extra layer. Just give us the basic KYC stuff, but not the extra layer for the supervisor. So it's almost in the final stages of discussion in Parliament. And on a Tuesday, when they were announcing a economic bazooka in the Netherlands, they also published a letter to our Senate on this legislation. And this was a letter which basically sort of ducked all the vital questions and was not really an answer to the questions of the people in the Senate. But I noticed it coming online, and I started tweeting about it, basically taking it all apart because it had all kind of flaws in it. And I was doing this in a tweet storm where each time that I did a tweet, it hit the Ministry of Finance account and a lot of Parliament's people accounts. So while they're preparing for this economic press conference, they're noticing these tweets coming up. And at the end of my tweet storm, I'm sort of done with dissecting the answer into bits and pieces, basically outlining that they didn't answer any question that was being asked, and they're sort of not telling the truth as to cost of supervision. So the cost for crypto for supervision was going to be more than a regular license for trust companies, like these companies that do business for large corporates and stuff. So this was really an over-the-top supervision layer. But at the end of my tweet storm, someone tweets to me, "Hey guy, where's the letter? I can't find the letter anymore." So they took the letter offline and waited for a week and only to publish it then. So this was really sort of makes you wonder, was this an administrative mistake, or was it basically using the crisis to slip in a piece of legislation or discussion that you want to while everyone's paying attention to something else, just move this one along. It's unclear which of the two, but they took it offline. It was gone for a week, and now they put it back online. And now the industry has officially sent a letter to the Minister of Finance saying, "Hey, guy, your first proposal was a good proposal, and then you started putting on this extra layer for the supervisor. But now you see in the budgets of the supervisor how much it costs. It costs more than other licensed entities. Well, we only have a registration. How can a registration be more expensive, almost one and a half times the one of a license of a trust company?" So have a look around, look at the Corona crisis. We are still employing people, but if you move this forward with an extra layer, it's going to be a hard time. So give us a break. Take out the extra layer of the supervisor. Go back to your own original proposal, and let's move forward. Basically, that's the idea. And we hope, all in the Netherlands hope, that the Ministry of Finance comes to its senses, because he said, well, I'm going to throw 90 billion euros at the problem here to solve the employment problems that will occur due to the coronavirus. Well, he can solve this one easily without paying a cent. Just take out a couple of rules, and we're there. So we really hope that he's waking up to reality, and he'll be sensitive to the argument.
One of the things I want to point out in all this is that you made a difference. You called them out, and that was a good thing to do. And so those of you who don't think you can make a difference here, you can make a difference. Social media, it can. You never know what you can do. And the thing that is disturbing with this is that during times of crisis, you never know what governments are going to try to pull. So keep an eye on everything. We're entering a time of surveillance, definitely surveillance for the good of the country. Everyone's saying digital surveillance, and a lot of Bitcoiners aren't into that type of thing.
I second that. Yeah, that's really true. This is the time to really pay attention, because this is the time that lots of stuff will be sneaked into legislation. So not just crypto regulations, all other kind of regulations. We really must pay attention. Yeah.
Hass, down in Australia where you are, any examples of government overreach or anyone trying to sneak anything in? digital surveillance, or do you want to talk? I didn't ask you about hyper-Bitcoinization either.
So with the surveillance thing and overreach, we're having a problem with basically neighbors ratting each other out, and our rules are becoming, well, it's kind of draconian and it kind of isn't. So like I've been going to work every day. You know, obviously you can't build a building remotely. So you know, the way we do things on site has changed a little bit. There's lots of professions that are kind of business as usual. But for example, like I cannot see my friends. So it used to be last week that you could invite one person that's external to your household over for a social event. Now you can't invite anyone unless they're a carer. You know, your girlfriend can come over. So you know, people in a relationship are allowed to see each other.
Good.
But other than that, it's in terms of it's a disaster in terms of social distancing. Now, with regards to like hyper-Bitcoinization and money printing and whatnot, I sort of take the actuarial, cold-blooded economic view. So what's the cost of a life? Roughly around about $2 million. So and I'll tell you how I got to that number. So America, they were expecting 3 million dead if they did nothing. So they spent 6 trillion to save 3 million lives. So there you go. Each life costs $2 million, according to the U.S. government. If you want to break it down that way, and I think you know, I don't know if they take that approach to it or not. But this particular amount of spending, if we're to believe what the government tells us, is to avoid death from health, and then the subsequent knock-on effects. You know, the economic knock-on effects. So I don't really have you know, a robust solution to offer governments for situations like this. This is something truly unique. With that said, I fully expected them to eventually, sometime in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years, to print trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Because eventually, you know, the debt-based, the built-on debt structure of our economy was always a house of cards built on shaky ground. So it was always gonna tip over. But this is the best opportunity for a government to step in and say, only we can save you, and you're going to have to do this and that to be saved, and you're just going to have to wear it with a brave face, otherwise you're going to be fined. So the fines for social gathering here in Australia are up to $11,000. If you're out without a reason, it's $1,000 fine. So
wait, have the police actually stopped people out for being? If I was walking on the streets of Sydney like I was back in October, and I didn't have could I have the police stop people like that just walking around?
Yep. So yesterday, a lady in Bondi got fined for sitting on a park bench. Now, the police commissioner came on TV and he said, "I'm personally overseeing these fines." And the ones that are bullshit, I'm putting a line through them. But yeah, like Australia was always a hardcore nanny state. Now it's a nanny state enforced with draconian fines. But there are a lot of industries that have been left to operate business as usual, and we've dodged the bullet. Effectively, Corona is over here. So we're over the hill. We've bent the curve. It's fine. So they're going to lock us up till June the 30th, and then you know, business.
No, you've said a lot here. You've said, and a lot of it is disturbing. First of all, pound that like button, people, because you just got the world view of everything. But that you're living in informant nation. I mean, it's cool to be an informant now. I mean, that is ridiculous. That I just. it disgusts me. They're contributing to the surveillance state. The citizen is. I mean, this is it's unprecedented, and yeah. I mean, we're talking about hyper Bitcoin. I mean. This is bigger. I mean that we're living in such a compliant time. It's very disturbing, very disturbing. Everything that you said out there. Do you see? I mean, the government able to pull this off until June the 30th? Like you do. I mean, you said that was the date.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely see them being able to pull it off.
People aren't going to riot. I mean, people aren't. I mean,
look, if they banned alcohol, yeah, my word, we'd riot. But other than that, us Aussies, we're a pretty chill folk. Like you saw us. We have never had a riot, pretty much in history, or at least since I've been alive. So I can't see it necessarily changing. And also, who's gonna go riot like when you can catch corona?
Yeah. Well, that's the like assembly. The freedom of assembly has been. People are freaked out. They don't want to assemble anymore. So it's kind of been taken away by the fear factor. Well, before I go to Anders with digital surveillance talk, I do want to get a final word on hyper-Bitcoinization from you, though, Hass. Do you think it is going to happen? Do you believe in hyper-Bitcoinization?
Yes, I totally believe in hyper-Bitcoinization. So if you remember my little facetious piece on the passion of the believers, the Bitcoin religion piece.
Oh yeah, of course.
Sort of the opening prayer, I said, beware the angel of hyper-Bitcoinization, and and don't face the angel without holding any Bitcoin, because there might be some punishment for you in the economic hereafter. Yeah. And I think we are now in the economic hereafter.
Very, very.
What this economy is now and going forward, it's very different and will be permanently different to the economy we had a few months ago. So as far as I'm concerned, we are now in the economic hereafter, and hyper-Bitcoinization is not far away.
I actually didn't ask Simon straight up if he believed in hyper-Bitcoinization.
No, I'm not certain. Today I had a look at the history books of the central bank, and I had a look at what happened in 1918 when we had the Spanish flu and the First World War, and a huge contraction, leading to massive debts of all kind of governments. But those were only 36 of 36 countries in the world. So I figured I'm going to look up the amounts, the contraction, the economic contraction, and how they dealt with it. And I think what I learned was that there was this huge contraction at first, just like we are experiencing now. Then it looked as if everything was okay, and everyone felt like, well, we're heading back to normal. And then you end up in 1929 with a huge stock crisis, and the 30s afterwards. So there could be a lingering effect. If you look in history, there could be a lingering economic effect that we sort of at first may not feel or may not be aware, and then it really hits us. So what's going to happen? It's what it tells me. It's very hard to predict. We're now so short after the initial shock. Let's say we're only witnessing the first part of the shock. We haven't seen the quarterly reports of a lot of companies. We haven't perhaps felt the pain fully in economic terms or sensed the pain to its full extent. So we may be up for even a more bumpy ride than we think we already had, and this may create some things that we can't foresee. So that's where my nightmare vision came in. That they will ban Bitcoin or forbid it or whatever. I mean, that's sort of. I'm not certain we're through the worst of it yet, and that may mean that. Well, in theory, I would immediately say this is the logic. I think the economic or geopolitical reality may be coming in between to bother a bit, or to mess it up. Basically, that's just my 2 cents. I mean,
all right. Anders, any thoughts on that, or the surveillance state where we're entering?
Yeah, I took a few notes here while Simon and Has was talking, because there's a few things I just want to give my take on. I think it was Simon who mentioned that this is the needle that bursts the bubble, and I think exactly that's what it is. It's the everything bubble, as we've been talking about for a couple of years, that had to burst sooner or later, and I think this is that. And to tie it up with what Simon just said, because I actually looked also, I went back to try and figure out, okay, how's the stock market going to react now? I went back and looked at the Dow Jones during the Spanish flu, and I saw, okay, it's not too bad, but then I realized that we never send pretty much the entire population, almost the world population, into quarantine. Many people have lost their job or have lost a huge part of their income. So spending is going, like, everyone is feeling uncertain about the future, and that they drop spending to a minimum. At the same time, even the U.S. government, I believe it was Munchkin, Munchkin, as I call him, that even from the government mentioned, and usually they don't want to paint a negative picture, right? That mentioned that unemployment in U.S. could go as high as 32%. So in my opinion, it's just a matter of time before we are in that depression, and not just a recession. And I think this is going to hit a lot harder than the stock market reflects currently. I can't believe that it went back up above 20,000, and I would not be surprised to see Dow at 15,000 or even 10,000, because I think that's, once quarterly results will come out with companies all of a sudden have lost, like a very big percentage of their income, that basically takes away profit. I think it's going to be a lot worse than we think. Another thing, Haas mentioned the price on life. I've exactly been thinking about the same thing. That it's kind of a taboo normally to talk about how do we price a life, because we could always do more to help people in different diseases or whatever. But at a certain level, government stops spending. So how do we actually price a life? What is the government willing to pay to keep someone at 90 alive, someone at 80 alive, someone at 70 alive? And you did a great calculation, and it's a high number that this time around we're willing to pay $2 million. But at the same time, as a friend of mine, Guy Bennett, mentioned, we may reduce this 3 million people from dying in US, but there's going to be a higher suicide rate now, because people are going to be put in a very terrible situation financially. There's going to be a lot of people who can't pay for their living costs. So that and other reasons to die because of normal life stopping. So essentially the price is even higher per life, I think. And then the last thing I want to comment on is the thing Simon was saying about Bitcoin might become illegal, and that could hurt Bitcoin from taking over. I think the same thing will happen as any time a government has banned anything, and that is it doesn't go away. Like alcohol during the prohibition in the 20s, alcohol did not go away. Drugs, the last 50 years, where the U.S. government has spent trillions probably fighting drugs and drug dealers and all of that. And around the world, governments have been spending a lot of money fighting drugs. The drugs are still there. If you want drugs, you can get drugs, but they are more expensive. So what happens actually is the price goes up on these things. Alcohol was more expensive during the 20s. Drugs are more expensive because when it's illegal and the person who's dealing it has a risk of going to jail, he wants a premium for working with that. So if it's made illegal, I believe that the price of Bitcoin actually will go up. And also, Simon was mentioning a bit, I think, with what is it, 180 countries we have around the world, I'm sure that at least a handful will see it as their opportunity to get a lot of wealthy people coming to their country and becoming a more wealthy country by saying, hey, Bitcoin is okay here. That'll both bring directly wealth. It will also bring workplaces, jobs. I don't think you can stop Bitcoin from becoming money of the world, because when it has infinite maximum value on all these properties of money, it's fighting Bitcoin from taking over as the money of the world is like fighting the gravity of a black hole. It just ain't possible.
Ooh, that was a good line. Pound that like button. Simon, did you have, I looked like you were trying to say something there at some of Andrews's points.
Well, just a brief mention. So I made this tweet line about Bitcoin. Is it a charcoal or diamond? And basically what we're talking about now is one of the angles, which is Bitcoin as a store of value or as a coin. But if you look at Bitcoin more in a number of varieties, in a number of ways, like an infrastructure, a processing technology with price discovery features, you can look at it at a number of angles. And the bottom line is it's a public good. And we're all everyone is good in choosing a single angle to talk about Bitcoin. So you can talk about the economic angle, or you can talk about, for example, if right now, I think that Bitcoin is sort of a very good price seeker. If I want to know in the morning how my stock exchange in Amsterdam opens up, I just have a look at the Bitcoin price and have a sense as to where the market is. So there are a number of angles that you can have in looking at Bitcoin. And I think the governments of the world may be overlooking a very relevant feature of Bitcoin, which is that it has a public good function. And everyone is distracted by all the talk about criminality, the talk about all kinds of stuff with Bitcoin. But we have to respect the fact that it's a public good. It has a number of very good use cases, particularly for people that are excluded from the financial system. So there's really more to Bitcoin than one single angle. So that was a thought that I've been expanding on, because I really dislike the fact that governments try to put it in one corner and push it away or make it go away, which is something that's you don't do that with public goods. So I'm really for a reevaluation of Bitcoin in a broad sense. That's basically what I'm aiming for.
Now that tweet, the charcoal or diamond tweet, it is linked to below. People can read the whole. Is there anything else you want to say about that thread? Because there was a lot in that thread.
Yeah, no, just leave it at that, and let people have a look and respond to the threads. I mean, the diamond Bitcoin, of course, is the diamond worth mining, meaning the public good worth cherishing, rather than fighting or forbidding.
Okay, very, very good. Let me get back to. We have a question from the audience here, real quick, from Guy Bennett, actually, who is Anders mentioned. And this is a complicated one. I don't know who can handle this, but we'll read it out. What do your guests think of Bitcoin as a hedge against anti-hoarding laws? Ultimately, banks will limit the amount you can hold and withdraw from their institutions. Anyone have thoughts on that one?
Yeah.
Okay, take it away.
Go ahead, Haas.
Yeah.
Start hoarding Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Wait, what did you say? What did you say?
I said, start hoarding Bitcoin.
Stop hoarding it? No way.
Stop. He said stop.
Okay. All right.
He said commence. Start hoarding it.
Okay. Commence. Anders.
Yeah. I mean, totally agree with Hars, and it is a hedge against money printing. It's a hedge against a bail-in like they did in Cyprus, where they I can't remember if it was 20 or 40% of whatever was in people's bank account. The government took it because they say we need money. You never know when that's going to happen again. It can happen in any country, even the richest country.
I don't think it's happening. I wanted to point this out. There are some people that are saying that the United States might do a bail-in. Why would they do it when they could just print the money? I don't expect a bail-in in the United States. I just want
No, you might be right.
But other countries, yes. Other countries, why not? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, Lebanon is about to do a bail-in.
Lebanon did it?
Is about to.
Oh, it's about to. Yeah, of course. Why not?
I think if to secure yourself about potential, like if the government knows that some money in your bank account or Bitcoin on an exchange, if some of the money on your bank account comes from Bitcoin or you have Bitcoin on an exchange, and they have your KYC information, your name and everything. They could make a law going back in time and saying, hey, this is hurting our country. We're going to confiscate it. So to answer Guy, it's a hedge against these potential laws to hold it yourself in your cold wallet.
All right. Simon, did you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, well, you could broaden it up. I personally took out all my stock from the US because my feeling was that the geopolitical situation in the US was so unstable that I wouldn't be surprised if there was going to be a freeze of my assets. So I took them all out to Europe, and that's the regular stock portfolio. Basically, not taking a risk where you have the idea that governments will start to intervene with capital controls and. That's.
Well, yeah, I can see the United States passing some law because of the virus saying we have to freeze all foreigners' assets. I mean, that was a good move on your part. I'll say that. But that's the cool thing with Bitcoin. You don't have to worry about that type of stuff.
Only your own government doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, let's. We've got something coming up in May called the Halving. And it can't be canceled. There are some people calling it the Quantitative Hardening. I really like that name for it, the Quantitative Hardening. So, Hass, have you forgotten about the Halving, or do you still have it on your schedule?
It's the only thing I think about. So it's the light in what are very dark times. I can't wait for the halving.
That's a good way of looking at it. For the people who are down, let that be your light and pound that like button. Sorry, Hass, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And not just that, it finally gives us the chance to put our theory to the test. So we've been hypothesizing for a while about what's going to happen with this halving, and now we have this external black swan event coinciding with this halving. So this is gonna give us a chance to put all those theories to the test, and I think a lot of what we've theorized will come to fruition, but it might have a bit of a lag because the rest of the world, understandably enough, is occupied with other things. But a lot of people are using this quarantine time to learn about finances and whatnot. And my phone for the past week has been ringing off the hook. Pre-coiners that know me know I'm the Bitcoin guy, calling me and saying, "What the hell is this whole Bitcoin thing?" So because of the frequency of calls, like because I don't watch TV, like I don't know if people are talking about it on TV or whatever. I live in a Bitcoin bubble, but it looks like people are starting to hear and pay attention. So that attention coinciding with a halving, and political and economic uncertainty and all that kind of stuff. I think the stock to flow model might be invalidated to the upside.
Oh,
Rarely.
oh, look at you, big talker there. I thought you were about to say the other.
No.
Oh my God. Oh,
Can I
what
comment on that?
please.
I totally agree, and that's what I've been saying, because that model will work until it breaks down to the upside, until which I believe will be after the next halving, unless the central banks just make it happen earlier, because they keep expanding the money supply by 20% every year. Because if you do 20, then next year you're going to do 30, and then we got the parabolic fiat currency curve. But that model sooner or later will break down, and that will be to the upside, and that will be hyper-Bitcoinization. And I believe that's going to happen in 2026. Yeah.
To the upside. These guys, it's great. I don't believe in clickbait. There are all these people out there that say $1 million Bitcoin. Basically, those two dudes just said it without saying it. So I give them credit for not being clickbaity about their beliefs. That's
I never said million. I said break to the upside.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're saying big numbers.
The next step up, I think the model's showing 100,000 US. I reckon it'll break to the upside of that, but eventually it'll break, to the upside. So the next halving, I think the modeled value is $1 million. I still think it'll break to the upside of that when it gets there. Because what's $1 million might get you a Snickers bar at that point. Like, what does $1 million mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we've just got done, or not we. So the US has just got done printing, 6.2 trillion or whatever it is. They'll be going to Congress now for another 2 trillion in stage 4. It's not like they're not printing anything in Europe. It's not like they're not printing anything in China. Australia, the little minnow, we printed 300 billion Aussie dollars. Just you wait till this thing catches fire in Africa and India, and the West has to step up with aid budgets. I can see 50 trillion in total being printed across the world by the time this is all said and done. Because Africa collapsing and India collapsing and all these countries collapsing present a huge geopolitical risk from immigrant flows, for example. So we have yet to see anything. I believe these are still early days.
Interesting. I want to stress that I've got the best freaking guest in the space. They don't need to say huge numbers. They say it in a very intelligent way. That's what I loved about the breaking to the upside reference there. That's intelligent. That's why pound that like button for these guests. Simon, you're having thoughts.
Well, I want to pursue the discussion on the expansion of the money supply and the effect it has on the value, because we think it's going to be a one-off, like for this crisis, but the thing is out of the toolbox. So each politician will think, okay, well, we've used it before, let's use it again. So I think the rules of the monetary game, where we used to be very strict, will be completely. We've broadened our perspective so much with this crisis that each politician that now wants to become a president just says, well, I'm going to hand you over another $1,000 from the money printing machine, because they now seen the thing in action, and that's also working towards towards the price effect, of course, for Bitcoin. And the halving has the same effect, but I'm very curious whether we have this. I keep seeing this mouse that is running from a cliff, and then it keeps on running, although there's no ground underneath. Wondering when will we have a disconnect between what should happen and what happens? That's what I'm really wondering. Whether there's a lag exactly between the logic and what actually happens. I'm very curious to know.
Well,
I support the logic.
One thing about the halving, and that Haas referenced, people, even during these times of turbulence, don't expect that to be a magical day. It's even with the last halving, you didn't really feel everything that it caused, the cut in the new supply. You didn't really see it until the next year, until 2017. So, like, for all the newbies out there, don't be disappointed if, on the day of the halving, nothing happened. Nothing is going to happen on that day. Now, what is interesting though, that Anders brought up, if it's not over in terms of the traditional finance markets, in terms of the stock market, Anders said he's shocked that it went up to back up to 20,000 again, and that he could see 10,000 very soon. Well, if people aren't going to go back to work in the United States, then the way the dates line up, I mean, we could see like a stock market crash like happen the day of the halving. So that would be very interesting if we have another stock market crash like very close to the halving, because it could be like almost like a marketing event for the halving. Like, hey, this is what's going on in traditional finance. This is what's going on in Bitcoin land. So I just thought of that actually when Anders brought up the possibility of another big stock market crash. Do you have anything to add to that, Anders?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen exactly in May. I mean, I think we're going to go down further and set a new low before we get to May. But I don't think enough stockholders are aware about Bitcoin and Bitcoin halving and the effect of Bitcoin halving on its price that they're gonna sell a lot of stock exactly that day. But who knows? Maybe it works out that way. But I think the fact that the stock market has gone up is what is called a bull trap. That you trap the bulls in the market that thinks, okay, it went up a little bit. Okay, now it's the worst is over. Now we can start buying cheap. And the stock market goes up, and then it goes further down. Like a crash has never happened in a straight line down. There's always some positive movements to the upside on the way down. I think that's what we're seeing right now, and I think we're going to go further south. I'm not claiming to be an expert on that. It may not hit 10,000. It may not hit 15,000. I mean, also if we're printing a ton of money, and as Haas was saying, a Snickers might cost $1 million, then that itself will keep a floor under stocks. The real value might drop, but the price maybe doesn't. But I think it will go down to at least 15,000. A couple of other things I just wanted to say, commenting on some of the things that were said about the money printing, and now that it's happening in Europe, it's happening in US, it's all around the world, China. And it's really a matter of the countries that don't print as much money as the other countries. Well, actually, it's currency, it's not money, because money can store value and fiat currency cannot. But the countries that don't print as much will have a harder time to export their goods. So it very easily becomes a arms race in printing more, so you can keep export, keep the jobs. And really, we thought that politicians would try and prevent Bitcoin taking over hyperbitcoinization, but they may actually be the very people that make it happen sooner than otherwise. In terms of what Haas was saying with the model breaking to the upside, I mean, that's the one thing that I personally spent a lot of time looking at, these the bull and the bear market and how it revolves around the 4-year halving cycle. Granted, the sample size is not huge. We only have 2 previous halvings. However, it does make a lot of sense. So at least a year before the halving, an uptrend start. And that's what happened. We bottomed in January 2018 at $3,100. Since then, it's been going up. Again, of course, nothing goes up in a straight line. We were at 14,000, then we were down at 38.50, but we are up from the low. Then the halving happens, and what previously has happened is it goes from being an uptrend to be more of a bull market. It starts going a little bit faster. But last year was 90% up. This year may only be, say, a bit above 100%. But the real value, the real increase in value of Bitcoin has always happened, near the end of that bull market, where it becomes more of a FOMO peak. where people have fear of missing out because they've seen now on CNBC and so many other TV channels how the price is going up. So you have people buying Bitcoin that don't know what Bitcoin is, that don't understand it has a future, but they just want to, they have afraid they're not going to make money on that like everyone else. And that's where it gets steeper and steeper and steeper. And I looked at the last 2017 FOMO peak. The last 2 weeks, approximately, it went up 100%. You double that time, 1 month approximately, and it went up 200%. If you double that again, I think it was 66 days, it goes up 300%, or it did. So it really gets steeper and steeper and steeper, as we have all seen. I just wanted to put some numbers on that, and I think that's really how it happens. So after the halving, we get the price goes up, and we start. This is what Plan B calls co-integration. That within there, I think it's every 2 years, the price will both be above and below the expected stock to flow price of Bitcoin. And the way it happens is because of that bull market that keeps going until FOMO, that's when it goes above. So I expect that the 100,000 that the model says we will go way above that next year. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if 200,000 by sometime second half next year. It could even go higher, but and then in the end it goes so steep that there will be people holding Bitcoin that says, this might be too much too fast, so I want to take some profit, or maybe I want to pay off the mortgage or something, and then it starts going down. And then when it goes down, all the people that bought it that doesn't really understand, they don't understand Bitcoin, they just see they only bought it because the price were going up. They're the same people we call weak hands that start selling because the price goes down. And that's when you then have the bear market. And that keeps going like we saw last time. It went on for a year until and the price then goes below the stock to flow expected price. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a peak at $250,000 maybe, and then it has a crash down to 50,000 maybe, or $40,000 per Bitcoin, until again we can see in the light in the tunnel, the 2024 halving, and then it starts that uptrend again, probably. Well, last time it was 1.5 years before the halving, the uptrend starts. History doesn't repeat, it rhymes. There's no exact guarantee for anything, but I think that's still within the model. When I claim that it breaks down is when we leave the stock to flow expected price for good to the upside, when we don't come down to it again because we go into hyper money printing, hyperinflation, and it's game over for fiat, and it'll be Bitcoin only. All right, I said a lot.
No. Pound that like button. People love hearing predictions like that. And one thing you said there, and this I agree with, is that there will be huge drops in the future. There will be that will make the drops of today look like nothing. We went down with $4,000 in a day or whatever it was. There'll be big in terms of in terms of fiat drops. There might be a day where Bitcoin goes down by 10,000. That's why you have to have a strong hand, people, a real strong hand. But hey, if the numbers are that high, it's what a world it will be. We're getting toward the end of the show, so I want to get everybody to get in their final words, things that got left out, et cetera, et cetera. I'll start with Haas though, real quick. You tweeted about something called the Bitteroo exchange down in Australia. What's that about?
Yes.
Yeah, please tell us.
Bitteroo is another auto. So everybody knows me as the auto DCA guy, and it's the hill I've chosen to die on. So I'm always trying to promote Bitcoin only auto DCA companies. And there's a new one now coming to Australia called Bitteroo. I'm one of the beta testers there. So far, highly impressed. low fee auto DCA going to go live mid-May. So we've got now auto DCA firms pretty much covering the entire Anglosphere. In the US, we've got Swan.
Yep.
So I provide chaplaincy and frying services to Swan, and a bit of advice from time to time. Swan has almost total coverage of the US. I think only missing 2 states.
Yeah, they're missing New York. I know
New
that.
York is one of them. Yeah.
New York is one of them. Yeah.
Everyone's, New York is a tough one. But Cash App is going to be implementing auto DCA soon as well. So I imagine that'll be coming to New York, Bitter in Europe, CoinFloor coming to the UK very soon, Bull Bitcoin in Canada. I just wanted to add to Anders's point on exponentials. So there's a very famous quote by Dr. Albert Bartlett, professor of physics, God rest his soul. The greatest shortcoming of the human race is the inability to understand the exponential function. And I think this used to be the case 2 months ago, but I think every human now, with the advent of coronavirus, has received a comprehensive education in the exponential curve, which will make understanding of Bitcoin easier.
In theory, it will. I don't know people.
At least now it's an idea in the mainstream. This is what an exponential curve is. So for some people, this is the first time in their life they've ever heard of an exponential curve, and the flattening of the curve and peaks and troughs and all of that. So I think this might be a good lesson by proxy, because it's all about exponentials in the Bitcoin world.
That's a positive spin on the situation. I like that. Again, for those that don't understand, DCA, dollar cost averaging, you are a you're definitely dying on that hill. That's
I buy every day, and I don't even know. I've said it and I forget it.
But you're an expert on it because you just listed a bunch of countries, a bunch of but I mean, you should make a site that says wherever you are in the world, this is where you go if you need the DCA.
It's my pinned tweet.
So
even the Indians have an option at with BitDroplet. So we've got fantastic coverage now. Pretty much just Latin America and Africa missing. So hopefully.
They should get one in South Africa. I don't see why they don't do DCA down in South Africa, man.
So I'll look into it. Maybe I'll start badgering a couple of the South African exchanges.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of big South African fans in the Bitcoin world. They're watching now. Pound that like button. All right, Hassan McCook, thank you for taking time this morning. It's Saturday morning where you are. Thanks for being on. All right, let's move to Simon. Any matters you wanted to bring up that were not brought up? Any replies you wanted to say that you didn't get to reply? The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. No, Adam, it's been a pleasure being in the show. Thank you for hosting, and I wish all the listeners all the best and good health.
Very nice. Thank you for returning, making your second appearance on the show. It's always great to have you on. All these dudes are linked to below in their tweets. You can learn all about them, and they've got links on their Twitter accounts where you can even learn more about them. So just don't blindly read the tweets. Click on the links. You'll learn so much. All right, Anders. And you've got something to say, probably, man. What's going on?
I mean, but I'll try and keep it fairly short. I've said a lot already. First of all, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, Adam. And thanks for hosting the show. I really enjoy it. So thanks for the invitation. Also, I just want to say about Tor that I didn't know that until you told me just pre-show. And that's very sad. He came to every single of my meetups, and he was just the happy, the kindest guy you can imagine. And usually Bitcoin is something that it's skewed towards younger people. He was a little bit more senior, but he was totally Bitcoin maximalist, strong hand. What a fantastic guy. So very sorry to hear that. And yeah, Haas mentioned Swan. Full disclaimer, I'm a little bit involved there as well, but they are probably the best DCA solution in the United States, where the fee is only 0.99%, which is unbeaten, I believe, in US. So that's, and it's Bitcoin only, of course, no other coins. Then I think it was a great suggestion you had for Haas with making the website, because something as fairly simple as CoinMarketCap was just sold for $400 million to Binance. So Haas, I mean, if you get at least half of that, it will be a well-visited site, because people will go there and try and find out where they can get the best DCA, and you can list the fees so people can find the cheapest solution. And yeah, maybe you can make a couple of $100 from Binance.
No, that's a serious thing you just said. I mean, in motion, people, be in motion. That's an idea right there. Because it is crazy. They're paying $400 million for that. Well, for the eyeballs is what they're paying for. So, I mean, DCA could be the hottest thing, and everyone would go there to see where you DCA in my country, where I could do it at. It's a good idea. I like that, man. We're coming up. We're brainstorming here on the This Week in Bitcoin show. Best freaking guest in this space. Well, thank you, dudes. Thank you very much. It has been a memorable show. Everybody, we do This Week in Bitcoin every Friday. So thank you again, guests. You tune in every Friday. Follow me on Twitter at TechBalt. If we've had issues with where the videos appear. I don't know where you guys are watching this right now, if it's taped or if you're listening, but definitely go to TechBalt, TechBalt on Twitter. That's where you can be up to date on the whatever the situation is with me and the video. But one thing you can be sure of, YouTube could try to shut me down, whatever. You're going to get a new show every single day. This Week in Bitcoin is every Friday. So again, thank you, guests. I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, Disrupt Meister. Remember, subscribe to this channel. Well, like this video, pound that like. I don't know what to say anymore. Dude, just keep on retweet. Shabbat shalom, everyone. And again, this show was dedicated to a great guy, a great strong hand. He will never be forgotten. Tor. We learned a lot from you, and everybody plan ahead. You never know what's going to happen, but enjoy your weekend. Again, everybody, Shabbat shalom, be safe. See you later. Thank you, everybody.
See you around.
See ya.